Me, my friend Nico, and my friend Samara have been hard at work since early May collecting interviews with our 16 contributors from 14 different countries to document the experience of young people internationally during this crazy time in our world. I haven't been posting the stories in a while, but I've really been enjoying hearing them, so I want to get back to sharing. So here we go.
Hi, my name is Linda Kamau. I am an NYU student, but I'm currently quarantined in Nairobi, Kenya. I remember it was a little bit before spring break that we heard that there was like a case in New York City. My roommate and I actually canceled our spring break plans because we were supposed to travel, but then we got kind of scared that we wouldn't be able to come back. And NYU emailed saying that, yeah, if you're still in your dorm, you need to leave. It was a bit hectic for me just because I'm an international student. My roommate offered to let me stay at her place because she lives in Jersey, which wasn't far, and I have an aunt who lives in Texas. Like NYU did give an option for people like if it was too difficult to go home, but I was like, I pictured this would last a lot longer at the time. Although at the time everyone was like, oh, it's just gonna be like 1-2 months. I just had a feeling that it would be a long time. In Kenya, it's not been a very strict quarantine. Like people can leave the house. The only rule is that like you have to have a mask, and if you're in a car, you should only be in the maximum you can have in a car is like 3 people. If there's more than three, like the cops will pull you over and everything. And there's a curfew. The curfew is 7 p.m. So everyone who's like outside after 7 risks being put into quarantine, like into the government quarantine facility. So yeah, schools closed as well. They didn't. They tried to do online learning for like some of them, but then most schools just ended up closing completely because it's not like exactly feasible here. Yeah, and then today, actually, they announced that they closed the border with Tanzania, which is like the neighboring country, because they have a ridiculous amount of cases and they are not reporting their cases. They're not reporting them, so people are really sick over there. It's been okay. Like the first 2 weeks, of course, I did like a self isolation, so I was just in this room and I wasn't really interacting with anyone except for like getting food. So that was not the best. But with time, I got out and they figured that I guess I wasn't sick because I didn't have like any temperature issues. I didn't actually get tested, but it was pretty obvious that I wasn't sick because I wasn't showing any symptoms. Unless I was like a carrier, then who knows? But yeah, when I got out, my mom and I kind of just started sorting out my room. Like we put a desk in here. We brought the Wi-Fi router into the room so that I'd be able to do my classes because I still had like half of a semester basically left. The time difference is ridiculous. Like it's worse with you because you're 10 hours, but with my classes, it was about 7 hours apart. So most of my classes were at night because like would be at night for me now. Most of the professors like were a bit understanding and they had recorded the classes so I could watch them the next day. But sometimes I felt like I was kind of missing out on like the discussions and everything. So I tried to stay up late, but it was not the most effective thing. I like to draw and all that. So I've been like painting, drawing from the safety of my bedroom, and also just to stay away from my parents because they drive me mad. I go like running with my mom sometimes. I guess before this week, I was pretty occupied by school and sort of the projects I was doing for that. But now I've reached that point where I'm like, okay, I need to buy a book or or start like practicing the guitar or something. Pretty bad.
Oh, no
Why
worries.
do I have a background?
So, yeah, I mean, the first thing is just really kind of catching up. And if you could paint a picture of how things have been since we last spoke, I think our first interview was maybe 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Okay, well, since then, I guess I finished my classes
and the semester ended and everything. In terms of like online work, I haven't really been doing anything else school related. I've been working on like personal projects. Like I told you, I'm slowly like incrementing my portfolio site and everything. The coronavirus cases have just like really taken off since then. I think when we spoke, we were like at 200 max. Now we're around 4,000. So yeah, it's been a big increase.
Since the protests have broken out, at least here, it seems like people kind of forgot about coronavirus. And I know that they've been happening in certain countries. And so I guess I was just wondering, how has that affected you in your experience?
For the most part in Kenya, I don't think there've been any physical protests. Like I don't think there's really been people like out on the street marching and everything, just because I think people here still are very scared of coronavirus. There's a very large fear of it, just because it's on everything. Like it's on all over the news, like everywhere. Anytime you drive outside, there's just like billboards and advertisements telling people to stay home and wear their masks and everything. So that's kind of been in the forefront. However, I will say that in Kenya, like at least among my friends and people that I follow on social media who are here, there's been a lot of like solidarity and just kind of online activism for lack of a better word. And they've been sharing resources, people have been signing petitions and everything, and even just kind of taking that step to sort of speak out about police brutality even in Kenya, because it exists and it's just as bad if not worse. And like no one ever talks about it, just because it's Kenyans against Kenyans. Like it's not exactly like white police killing black people. It's like it's worse, because you're hearing about like crimes based off of class differences and kind of based on tribal differences and all that. And that kind of, it's different, but it's still just as bad as what's going on in the US. So I think since that kind of started, people have been talking about this stuff more. Like every day there's just like heaps and heaps and heaps of posts, and at the same time it was also a bit insensitive kind of how things were going on. Like I remember the first week right after he was killed, there was like the video of the police kneeling on George Floyd's neck, and that was being circulated, and that was just wrong, because he has a mom, he had brothers, he had children, and like they don't want to relive the worst moment of this man's life, like all over social media every day. Like they don't want that to be his legacy, that he was killed. Like he obviously had other things going on. So there's just kind of like a balance where it's good to read what's on there and kind of share the information that you find, but then it's not good to kind of fall into the rabbit hole and watch all the videos, because then you get really sad and you just lose faith in humanity, and you're like, everyone is horrible. The police will kill me for being in my bed. Like literally, it's just too much.
What was your experience like going to college in New York? And did you ever experience any of that firsthand?
Like the protests, or like
issues with police?
Conflicts with police. Okay. Well, so I don't know if I mentioned this in my previous interview, but when I started college, I was actually in Florida. I went to a university there called Florida Tech, and I was there for 1 year before I transferred to NYU. And this is crazy, but literally the day we arrived, like we're in a cab, my parents and my brother are in a cab from the airport in Orlando going to Melbourne, where the school was. And we get pulled over by the police. And they had all these questions kind of just like towards the cab driver. He was definitely like an African man. I think maybe he was West African, but he was a cab driver in Florida. And I guess the cops kind of thought that he wasn't allowed to drive, or he didn't have his license or something. And they were asking him all these questions. And we were just like on the side of the road for about half an hour in the middle of the night. My mom was like, oh gosh, why would you choose to come here? Florida, I'll say, I think I experienced a bit more racism like in person, like from professors and kind of just on the street. I remember being in like an Uber once with a friend, and we were going to one of the malls near school, And the Uber just kind of asked us all these questions, and he was like, "Where are you guys from? You don't sound American." And we're like, "Oh yeah, I'm Kenyan." And my friend, she was Nigerian. He was like, "Oh wow, you two must be so blessed to have come all the way here. Like wow, you must be so lucky to have escaped those horrible countries." And I was like, "No, I don't think we escaped anything. I mean, who says, how do you call someone else's country horrible? I don't know. But, these things kind of just happened casually every day. I went back to visit, and my friends and I were in a car. Again, we were just driving around the school area, and the cop pulls us over, and he's like, "Oh, whose car is this?" Because it was a new car. My friend actually just got that car like a few days before, and he was showing it to us. And so we were just doing like a test drive, and that like right outside the school. And he was like, "Oh, whose car is this? Do you have registration? Can I see your license and everything? Can I see the IDs of everybody in the car?" And we're like, "But we're not even driving. Why do you need our ID?" It made no sense. But he was just asking all these irrelevant questions. And then when they saw that there was nothing to like arrest us for, then they let us go. That was kind of just like the trend of it. I think there's just that big reminder that there's a place where I stand in this world, and no matter no matter what books I read or what degrees I get, like there's still kind of this horrible stigma that exists against Black people, even against Black women specifically. It's horrible to kind of think about those things, but at the same time, I think that right now we're kind of like entering this sort of Black renaissance where people are more excited to kind of engage with Black people and kind of get to understand them a bit more, get to understand like the whole systematic racism that they experience and how it affects people's lives, and kind of want to create more opportunity for them. So I hope that when it comes to me applying for a job, my race or my name or my photograph won't like inhibit me from kind of getting the same opportunities that that you would, or that another woman would, or even a man would. I definitely had a point like a week ago or so, and I was just like, is there even a reason for me to go back? Like, should I just stay here and figure out how to get a job here and like do the rest of my degree, like my last semester online, and just say fuck it, like bye New York? I don't know. Like I thought about those things, and I was like, no, because if I give in, that's me taking away an opportunity that I earned. And if I give in, then they win. And then it's like, oh, what was the point of all those 4 years if I let something like this kind of define who I am and kind of stop me from aiming high and like hoping to achieve the things that I want to achieve. So